Good morning, students. So, we have seen the infrared spectroscopy and Raman spectra in our previous lectures. So, today we are going to start the new spectroscopic method, which is called the NMR spectroscopy. NMR spectroscopy is nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, as you are familiar with. So, we will have a set of total 3 lectures in the NMR spectroscopy. We will start with the fundamentals and the basics, the concepts, then we will go to the instruments, what the instruments works, and finally, we will see some examples which are pertinent to chemical engineering. So, we have the first lecture, lecture number 6, which is the NMR concepts and fundamentals. So, what we will be seeing, just now I told you, in this particular set of 3 lectures, which is the basic concepts, what are the nuclear spin states, chemical shifts. This chemical shifts is very important because this is where the heart of the NMR spectroscopy lies. Okay. Then magnetic resonance and spin-spin coupling, and finally applications including 2D spectra. So, in the case of chemical engineering, we use these methods. We are familiar with the methods which are infrared, Raman, and other absorption methods which you frequently do, but we are not much using this NMR spectroscopy for our day to day research, because this NMR spectroscopy is a very powerful tool for quantification also. We will see how we do that as we go ahead. So, but let us first understand the conceptual point, because this has not been taught earlier in the chemical engineering curriculum, but this spectroscopy, NMR spectroscopy is a very powerful tool. So, you should learn from the basics. So, as I told you, we have different transition. In the initial case, we saw vibrational mode transition, that is infrared and Raman spectroscopy. Okay. Then we have this what we called here nuclear transition. It is a nuclear transition, magnetic field. So, that is why it is called nuclear magnetic resonance. So, what is nuclear field? Nuclear field means it depends on nuclei, and nuclei consist of protons. And what does this proton? Proton has a spin. So, spin is an inherent characteristics of all subatomic particles. So, as you know, all the subatomic particles, let us say neutron, protons and electrons, have a spin associated with it. So, it will spin around its axis. So, if it is spinning, so it will have a magnetic moment associated with this spin. Now, when molecules or atoms or nuclei, if they are at rest, it will have a particular magnetic moment. So, these are without a magnetic field, these moments are oriented arbitrarily. So, since nothing is there, so they are just lying arbitrarily in random direction. But when a magnetic field is applied, magnetic field means external magnetic field, if it is applied, the field is generated which then alters the inherent magnetic moment. Now, when a field is generated or a field is applied from outside, field is generated means due to the applied magnetic field, then what it will do, the different protons or different nuclei which either align with it or it will oppose it, or we can say the spin of the nuclei or proton here will either align with it or oppose it. This is on the premises of this the entire NMR spectroscopy is based. So, this particular magnetic field will serve as a rotating force aligning the magnetic nuclear spin axis with the direction of the applied field. Okay. So, it may either align or it may go against the magnetic field. But is it true that all the nuclei will show a spin, or all the nuclei will either align or it will not align? So, we know it is true, but to a certain extent. The atomic nuclei do possess spin, they behave as if they are spinning. So, the nuclei means it is spinning around its axis. But what type of nucleus? Can we have any type of nucleus? No. We should have a nucleus which has an odd mass. What does it mean, odd mass? So, it can have an odd atomic number, or it has a quantized spin angular momentum and a magnetic moment. So, what do you mean by spin angular momentum? Spin angular momentum means it is spinning on its axis. If it is spinning on its axis, it will have a angular momentum which is conserved, and it can go to a certain states of energy. So, that is called quantized spin angular momentum, and because of the spinning motion of the nuclei, it will cause a magnetic moment. For example, if you have these type of nuclei C6H or O8, it does not have spin property because it is even number nuclear mass. So, for a spinning nuclei, the criteria for NMR spectroscopy or the criteria for allowable spin states is determined by its spin quantum number I, which is 2I plus 1. So, if you have a value of I for a particular nuclei, then you will have a total of 2 into I plus 1 number of spin states. This particular formula you should remember by heart, okay? And this number of spin states can also vary from plus to minus. We will see what is plus, what is minus. Here plus means lower energy, minus means more energy. It means plus means those states which are aligning with the magnetic field, minus means those states which are opposing the magnetic field. So, now if you have know the I value, then you put the I here, you will get number of states, and that number of states, let us say it is 3, 4, 5. So, you can divide it this way. You can write plus I, then I minus 1 like that, and again minus I plus 1, minus I like that. Without the presence of magnetic field, the energies of all speed states of a given nuclei are equal or degenerate. It means you have nuclear spin states at rest also without magnetic field, but this plus or minus spin states are lying very close to each other. So, we can say they are almost of equal energy. So, they are equal or degenerate, means they are very similar to each other. Physically they are very similar to each other without the presence of magnetic field. For instance, the spin quantum number I of a proton, for a proton, that is hydrogen nucleus we are talking about, is half. So, sorry, this 1 is missing here, I equal to half. So, now the spin quantum number is half. So, if it is half, what are the allowable spin states? 2 into half plus 1, which is 2. So, it means it is 2 of I plus 1, these number of states. So, based on that it will have 2 states because I here is half. So, what are the 2 states denoted as? Minus half and plus half. So, minus half means it will oppose the magnetic field, plus half means it is aligning with the magnetic field, or conversely plus half will be of lower energy, minus half will be of higher energy. And if we put I as 3 by 2, then you will have 4 possible spin states, which is seen for chlorine nucleus. So, it is 2 into 3 by 2 plus 1, these are 4. What are those 4 states? As I told you, how was these numbers coming? These numbers are coming, as I told you, if you go to the previous slide, just recollecting so that you will come to know this formula you should recollect. Okay. So, this formula you get 2I plus 1, then minus 2I plus 1, minus I plus 1 like that, then plus I plus 1, plus 2I plus 1. So, if you put those I values here, you will get the different state, that is minus 3 by 2, minus half, plus 3 by 2. Okay. So, these are different states. So, what are these different states? We will tell, I will discuss how are they oriented, we will discuss. So, like these are almost either it will be aligning with the magnetic field or against the magnetic field, and with these two are somewhat, it will orientation is changing. So, that is why these are having 3 by 2. Similarly, for oxygen, it is I is 5 by 2 and the allowable spin states are 2 into 5 by 2 plus 6 is 6. Again the same thing, 2I plus 1, 3I, how many states? 6. So, it will be 6I plus 1, 6I plus 1, then 6I, 5I plus 1, like that. You keep on writing, you will get the different states here, 6 states. So, now like this you see this proton is only having 2 states, then another deuterium is having 3 states, then it does not have any state. The carbon nuclei for the isotope having 12 does not have any spin states, but for 13 it has 2 states. So, this particular focus will be on in our lecture will be on this C1 and C13 NMR spectra, or this is called the proton NMR spectra and the carbon 13 NMR spectra. Then you have the nitrogen, oxygen again will not have any spin states, but the one which is 17 will have spin states, fluorine will have 2 spin states, then chlorine will have 4 spin states. So, these are the different spin states of different nuclei. So, now as I told you what are these nuclear moment. Okay. So, when a nuclear is actually the proton is spinning, so it is spinning in this manner. So, this is the inherent magnetic moment, okay, mu. If it is spinning in this manner, it is opposed to the particular field, then mu will be in this direction. Okay. Because of this direction of the magnetic moment, and if you apply a magnetic field from outside with the direction as given here, then this one is having the same direction, the magnetic moment and B naught is at the same direction. So, we say it is aligned and we give a positive sign. If it is not this one like opposing the magnetic field, it is negative. So, it is opposing. So, it means this particular state will have higher energy, this will be have lower energy. Okay. So, this is what we just summarized. Within the confines of an applied magnetic field, all protons have either aligned themselves or moved in the opposite direction of the field. This you should remember the spin states for a proton. Now, with regard to the applied field, nuclei can only adopt one of these orientation. Okay. So, as I just now told that plus half will have a lower energy which aligns with the applied field, while minus half is a greater energy, therefore, it is opposition. So, this is what again it has been summarized. So, just keep in mind, because why am I stressing here? Because on the basis of this we will come to know how the spin states are oriented, direction of the field. So, you remember properly, if it is rotating this way, this anti-clockwise, it will having a moment to the upward direction, it is clockwise lower direction. So, it will oppose the field. Now, physically what does that mean? What does that mean it is opposing the field or it is aligning with the field? Do we know, can we say something about it? What does it? For example, if you assume this, you look up this particular figure or schematic, the magnets here are aligned arrangement. So, here all the magnets are aligned arrangement initially, it is aligned arrangement. You see this one, the left hand side one, the left hand side means this one, you see these are all north is pointing to south and again north is pointing to side, these are aligned. So, it is lower energy. Okay. When they are not aligned correctly, the central magnet is pushed away from its present. So, if suppose this is a pivot and I try to rotate it and try to put this, I mean it was earlier north pole, I rotated it and I have put here north which is facing to north, south which is facing to the south. So, this is very undesirable, it is unstable. So, if it is placed, if this now we place it on a pivot, it will try to rotate, right, it will try to rotate along its axis, it will try to rotate, why? It will try to go to a lower energy state. So, while doing so, it will try to lower its energy. So, it means what are the two possible energy states we are having? Either it is opposed or aligned. This is what I want to convey, either it will be plus half or it will be minus half. Okay. As an external magnetic field is applied, the nuclei can obtain one of the two spin states, that is what we want to say. So, it will try to collect itself, rearrange itself to a stable form. So, now it is something like this. So, when there is no field, if I plot the ordinate here in terms of energies of the spin states. So, when there is nothing, the molecule has rest. So, difference between the two states is not much, it is very less. So, we say that they are degenerate, similar in nature. Now, you apply the magnetic field, what happens? This will split. So, the one which is lower energy will align along with it. So, it will have low energy. While those which is opposing the field, it will have minus half, it will have higher energy, this is high. So, this gap is created low and high. So, these are the two possible energy states when we talk of proton. When a magnetic field is supplied externally, the degenerate spin states divide into two states with uneven energy levels. Okay. So, this you should actually remember and you should think that this what is practically this is happening in the NMR spectra. Now, let us just see the chlorine atom. In chlorine atom, we saw that it has 4 spin states. The 4 spin states are plus 3 by 2, plus half, minus 3 by 2. Now, when there is no field, these are all lying close to each other. When there is field, they split into different energy levels. So, here there are 4 energy levels. So, both the one which are positive, they are aligning with the magnetic field, which are negative, which are opposing the magnetic field. Now, what about minus half plus half? We know that is just either top going upward, or I am sorry, plus 3 by 2, the one which is of a higher value may either move up or move down based on its sign. It is opposing, this is aligning. Now, plus half and minus half also similar, but its orientation is bit changed. So, it is somewhat to this direction, not perpendicular, and this is the somewhat it is opposing, but in a different manner. So, these are the alignments of the different spin states. So, we call these as intermediate orientation. Okay. So, this is very important when you study the chlorine NMR. So, now what happens in terms of energy? So, this is when you do not have any magnetic field applied. Now, you apply magnetic field means you are applying an energy of this source. So, this splits, energy level splits, as I told you. Now, what do we do? Okay, fine, the energy level is splitting, and do they have any use to us? Yes, they have a use to us, because when a nuclei aligned with the applied field are driven to absorb energy, so it is then absorbing energy. If it is absorbs energy, then a resonance phenomena occurs. Their spin orientation changes in response to the applied field. The process of this energy absorption, the energy is absorbed. If this energy is absorbed, we say the energy is quantized or at certain level. So, amount of energy absorbed must be equal to the difference in energy between the two states. So, what is the amount of energy it is absorbing? So, if that h nu is equal to the difference in the energy of the two states, then we say resonance has occurred, and the term nuclear magnetic resonance actually comes from this phenomena. So, what is the amount of energy absorbed? Is nothing but the energy of the minus half state to the plus half state, this is equal to h. You should carefully remember this expression. So, it means that the strength of the applied electric field, which is B naught, will define the energy difference. So, this energy difference is a function of the applied magnetic field, fine. So, intensity of the applied magnetic field hence dictates the energy disparity between the different spin states. The energy difference also depends on the nature of nuclei. So, not only the states, it is also depend upon the nuclei, whether it is a proton, carbon 13, chlorine, oxygen, whatever. So, this difference you see is based on some factor k into the magnetic field applied, which is equal to h nu. Okay. So, as you keep on increasing the magnetic field, you will get higher and higher difference between these two opposing states. So, it means if you operate a spectrophotometer at different frequencies, you will get higher and higher difference in energy, and you will have a prominent spectra also, because more the energy, more will be the higher and the more will be the intense peak. So, that actually we can relate it to the magnetic ratio. What is this? It is nothing but a ratio between magnetic moment and the angular momentum. So, magnetic moment is something which is inherent of the molecule, and angular momentum is like it is spinning on its axis. So, it is conserved, the angular momentum is concerned. So, obviously, that gives gamma, this is ratio is constant for each nuclei and is different for different nuclei. This will decide the energy dependence on the magnetic field. As I told you, the difference of this energy will depend upon the magnetic field. So, now you see here. So, we say you have two spin states alpha and beta. So, if you apply a frequency of 400 megahertz, if you have a energy of 400 megahertz and you are applying a magnetic field of 7.04 Tesla. 1 Tesla is approximately 10,000 Gauss. So, your difference in energy is this much, 1200. Okay. Now, you increase from 400 megahertz to 900 megahertz. If you apply 900 megahertz of energy, then the two energy states differ by this value delta E 3600. See, now you have a wider difference in energy if you apply or keep the change of the magnetic, that is the frequency of this magnetic field. So, 400 megahertz to 900 megahertz, it increases from 1200 to 3600. So, if we can say the angular momentum from physics, we know it is a multiple of h by 2 pi. So, we wrote the formula, this energy is a function of magnetizing ratio and the B naught. So, this if I take it outside and express B naught multiplied by h upon 2 pi, because this is a function of the angular momentum is quantized in units of h by 2 pi. So, B naught. So, this means this entire expression is nothing but equal to h nu, fine. This is of the particular nuclei, please remember, it is not wavelength. So, solving this equation for frequency, what is the frequency of the light, then it will be, you just have the h, this cancelling out this h. So, what you have is frequency is the magnetizing ratio by 2 pi into B naught. So, if you substitute the correct value of for the proton, you will get the value. For example, if we talk of a proton, if in a field of 1 Tesla, in a field of 1 Tesla, an unshielded proton should absorb a radiation corresponding to a frequency of 42.6 megahertz. So, it's almost 10,000 Gauss. Or if I increase from 1 Tesla to 1.41 Tesla, the same proton should absorb radiation at a frequency of 60 megahertz, which is having equivalent to 14,100 Gauss. Okay. So, this is very important. 1 Tesla is equivalent to 10,000 Gauss, 1.41 is equal to 14,100 Gauss. So, you see that it is changing from 42.6 to 60 megahertz. This is very important. So, these are the different isotopes. Now, very important point which has to be made, that is, why are we only studying these two, proton as well as carbon 13? Why not other? Because you need to see whether these two nuclei are abundant available in nature, fine. If it is not abundant in nature, then how will you quantify? Because if its presence number of nuclei is very less, there is no point in doing a spectra, because for a very limited number of nuclei, you do not want to do such an exercise. That is why we use proton, because it is almost 99.98% abundance. We do not do the other deuterium, because its abundance is very less. C13 is also good, is 1.108, but many features are not observable in C13. And then we have the fluorine, which is 100, and the phosphorus, which is again 100% available, this nuclei. So, fluorine, phosphorus, all these are very available. They in a modern NMR spectrophotometer, you have different probes for these type of nuclei. So, these are used for special circumstances, but the proton and carbon NMR is the most common, which is used in routine work by organic chemists or chemical engineers. So, these are different field strengths, as you see in the third column, different field strengths, Tesla, 1 Tesla, 3, 7, it will have different frequency of absorption. Okay. Then magnetic radius of this proton is fixed. So, now you see, as you have higher and higher magnetic ratio, you will have higher and higher frequency recorded, fine. Lower will have lower. Okay. So, it is a direct relation between the magnetic ratio and the frequency. So, we have seen the absorption of energy and we have seen the different natural abundance. We saw for proton, deuterium, carbon 13, fluorine and phosphorus. So, other than proton, and fluorine and phosphorus, carbon is very less. So, that is why the proton NMR spectroscopy is nowadays widely used. So, what we learnt till far is that various nuclei are capable of exhibiting magnetic resonance, and the different nuclei do absorb in different areas. But the hydrogen and carbon resistance are of main interest from a chemistry perspective, because the every carbon is everywhere. You have in the air, you have carbon dioxide and the carbon in many of the organic molecules, which is again attached to hydrogen. So, this proton and this carbon 13 nuclei are the widely studied. So, what we in a nutshell, we saw that the proton hydrogen nucleus, and if we apply a field strength of 1.41 Tesla, so we have two spin states plus half minus half, one which is having a lower energy is having a plus, the one which is negative is having a minus. So, the energy difference between those states is given in terms as delta E is nothing but 2.39 10 to the power of minus 4 kilojoule per mole. This energy gap just now we saw is represented by a radiation with a frequency of maximum 60 megahertz. So, kindly note the 60 megahertz resonance, for that the energy is what we said in the last slide. This actually falls between radio frequency portion of the electromagnetic spectrum. So, if you recollect in the starting lecture as well as in the subsequent lectures, I told that these radio frequency waves, they are having a very large wavelength. Okay. So, because of the large wavelengths, so these are also NMR is clubbed together in a radio frequency portion, and this radio frequency portion of this NMR is what you can find in many of these nuclei. So, it is actually related to nuclear transition. So, nuclei exhibit energy difference between spin states that are both smaller and greater than the hydrogen nuclei. Nuclei of different types of atoms can be observed in a single instrument. So, now nuclei may be connected in different chemical environment, fine. Some may be connected to an electronegative atom, some may be connected to a carbon atom, some may be connected to itself. So, different nuclei, that is why absorb in different region. So, the instruments operating at frequencies of 300, 400, 600 megahertz are commonly used. So, in our parent institute, we have the Central Instrumentation Facility CIF, IIT Guwahati, where we have access to both 400 and 600 megahertz NMR spectrophotometer, along with we have different probes for scanning different nuclei. For example, proton, carbon 13, then boron, then chlorine, then fluorine, then phosphorus, all these different nuclei. You change the probe, you get similar magnetic field and you get a spectra related to that respective nuclei. Now, let us see what do we mean by we are talking about the term called resonance. So, what it is? Why are we telling resonance? So, resonance in terms of nuclear transition is very interesting. Now, see, if this is the diagram, this is based on the analogy of a child spinning top. You must have been knowing this child spinning top, you must have used it also in your childhood. So, when you spin this spinning top, so it rotates along its axis and as well as it rotates in this manner. So, you call this another frequency, the one frequency is one which is rotating within the axis, and the other frequency is like it rotates in a particular axis, the axis is perpendicular to the ground. So, this particular is called omega, which is shown here, and this omega, this particular analogy of a child spinning top is exactly the same how the nuclear spins. So, here again you have a nuclear spinning nuclei on the application of a magnetic field B naught. So, here is this omega, this is called a precession frequency, precession frequency, we will see what does that mean. So, we are not interested in the spinning around this axis, it is what the spinning along the precession, that is the precession frequency is the one which we are more interested, and this is actually detected by the instrument, that is the NMR spectrophotometer. So, what happens is that while it spins, the protons absorbs energy as a result of their precession to the presence of a magnetic field. Okay. So, this is very important, this is where the entire heart of the NMR spectrophotometer lies. So, it absorbs this frequency, so energy. So, if suppose an incoming radiation with the same frequency falls on this type of nuclei, which is having a magnetic field B naught. So, it will absorb a frequency which is given by omega and it will show up in the spectra likewise. So, it is like just now I told you this precession is comparable effect to that of a spinning top. Due to the gravitational pull in this case of the earth, the top starts to wobble. So, as I told you, it will precess around its axis. So, this precess means this particular loop it travels. This is called precessing along its axis. Same way in the nuclei also it is precessing along its axis. Under the influence of an applied magnetic field, a spinning nucleus will also act similarly, just now what I have told. So, when a magnetic field is applied, the nucleus starts to rotate at an angular frequency around its own spin axis, which is often referred to as Larmor frequency. Okay. So, the Larmor frequency is what? When it is starts to rotate at an angular frequency around its own spin axis. Just now I have told that is called Larmor frequency, and this Larmor frequency is obviously will be different for different nuclei. So, a proton's rate of precession, okay, the proton's rate of precession is proportional to the strength of the magnetic field. So, the way it spins this particular omega, it is proportional to the strength of the applied magnetic field. Now, all this B naught is also will be depending upon how this frequency based on the magnetotic ratio which I told you. So, which is nothing but the ratio of the angular momentum to the magnetic moment. Okay. So, higher the applied field, faster the proton's rate of precession or angular frequency. For example, if I apply a field of 1.41 Tesla, which is equal to 14,100 Gauss, the frequency of the precession is about 60 megahertz. Okay. So, if you apply this particular field, the frequency will be 60 megahertz. So, now the what happens if it is precession? The precession is producing a oscillating electric field with the same frequency. The energy may be absorbed if the radio frequency of this frequency is applied to the precessing. So, whatever frequency you are sending to the particular nuclei, if that frequency matches with the frequency the particular nucleus is precessing about its axis, then we say that it is having resonance. So, that is when the frequency of the incoming radiation oscillating electric field component exactly matches the frequency of the precessing nucleus electric field, then we have resonance. So, the two fields they may couple, transferring energy from the incoming radiation to the nuclear and resulting in a spin shift. This state of equilibrium is known as resonance. So, we say the nucleus is said to be in resonance with the incoming electromagnetic waves. So, you must have understood. So, what it is? I mean, you will have a spinning nucleus causing an electric field which has a particular frequency. If this frequency of the electric field actually matches with the frequency of the incoming radio frequency, okay, if these two matches, then we say the nuclei is in resonance, and this is where the energy is absorbed and you see two different spin states. This equilibrium is actually called as resonance. Okay. So, as you must always remember, when you have magnetic field you will have associated electric field, and when you have electric field you will have associated magnetic field. So, these are coupled together, okay, and when you have two of this coming together, if they are of the same frequency, it results in resonance. So, this is what it is showing pictorially. So, you have sending a frequency of h nu, here nu is 60 megahertz. So, this h nu is nothing but h omega in this case. So, omega it means it will again having a frequency equal to 60 megahertz. So, now see it is matching the frequency and angular momentum, these are all matching. So, because of this matching, the proton will absorb energy and the plus half will go into a negative half. So, it means that already plus half and minus half is there, but there will be a spin states. Spin states means what? There will be difference in the two spin states. See, one thing you should keep in mind, at room temperature and when there is no magnetic field, still you have the two different spin states, but they are separated with a very low energy. So, we can call them degenerate pair. But now since it is absorbing energy, there will be another state which actually absorbs energy, which is called the minus half. So, which is opposing this particular magnetic field. Okay. So, this is what it is summarized here. The incoming radiation may be used to transfer energy to the nucleus from plus half to minus half. The spin changes. This is actually referred to as resonance. So, for NMR, absorption occurs when this nu equal to omega. Okay. So, this is also called as proton flipping. So, a proton is subjected here, for example, a magnetic field of 1.41 Tesla. So, if you subject a proton to a field of 1.41 Tesla, so it will initiate resonance at 60 megahertz. And if you use this formula h nu, so we just now saw that the difference between the proton 2 spin states is equal to 2.39 into 10 to the power of minus 5 kilojoule per mole. As I told you, at ambient temperature, the difference between the two levels is very small. So, it means that if that is so, at the ambient temperature, if the difference is small and if all the energy levels are equally populated, how will we see this particular transition? So, there is a particular thing which is to be important, which and has to be noted, because you see lower energy spin state has a small number of excess nuclei, small number, right. So, it is something like that what we read in Raman spectra. So, out of 10 lakh maybe 7 or 8, something like that, 10 lakh nuclei, maybe 7 or 8 nuclei are extra in that particular lower energy state. It is those extra nuclei which is responsible for resonance. So, how can we say how many of nuclei is there? So, we write a Boltzmann distribution equation to determine the size of this discrepancy. Let us see if we can get how many nuclei we have at different energy levels at room temperature. So, this is what the Boltzmann distribution look like, a number of nuclei in the upper energy state to the number of nuclei in the lower energy state, which is nothing but e to the power of minus delta E by kT. It is nothing but minus h nu by kT. So, if this frequency is same as 60 megahertz, if you put these values 60 megahertz here, so what you have is this particular value around 10,000 to 1000, not 10,000, it is much more than that, 10 lakh. So, if you see there are 9 excess nuclei in the lower state as compared to the higher state. So, at 298 Kelvin with a 60 megahertz instrument, there are 9 nuclei more in the lower spin state. These extra nuclei are what enable us to detect resonance. Okay. So, kindly note this, because see the issue is when this radiation occurs, it will have both downward or upward transition, because these levels will be populated fine at room temperature, it will be populated. There will be some nuclei always present in the upper state, in the lower state, but which are the nuclei which are giving us spin different transition? It is those 9 nuclei, otherwise everything remains the same. Please keep this in mind. So, if you see how is increases, so if we apply more and more of energy, you will get higher and higher excess nuclei. See, I have increased the nuclei, say 60 megahertz we was looking at, it gets around 9 excess nuclei. If you have 20, 3, 40, so you keep on increasing the energy supplied, you get higher and higher excess nuclei. So, that is how you actually try to do the any NMR experiment at a higher frequency, because if you have at a higher frequency, you have higher number of nuclei in the excess nuclei in the lower energy state. So, if the saturation means it is a condition where the population of the higher and lower state are precisely equal, okay, there is no net signal, because, but if you have both together similar, so there will be no resonance, because the nuclei is same in both the, which you do not want. So, caution must be used to prevent saturation. Saturation occurs rapidly if the radio frequency signal is less. This is the reason why a high frequency NMR is always desired. Okay. So, the frequency NMR spectrometer is always desired when the frequency is higher. So, overall in a nutshell, let us see what we have learned so far in the case of NMR. So, the advantages of NMR, as I know, it is based on the nuclear partition function, that is on the application of magnetic field. So, it gives the structural information of molecules, because you know this hydrogen can be connected to carbon, it can be connected to oxygen, it can be connected to let us say some other branched compounds such as this type of compounds, or some other element like that. It gives the structural information just like infrared spectroscopy. But all this spectra is affected by electronegativity, hybridization and bond orders. So, this we will see in the next lecture. So, how do these affect? In case of proton NMR, the peaks obtained are at different chemical shifts. Now, this is a very important concept which I will let you know. This chemical shifts is what the heart of the NMR spectrophotometer lies, because you cannot measure the absolute frequency of each nuclei where it is absorbing. That is impossible to measure, because it will take a lot of time, and different molecules has different frequencies, and these frequencies will also change based on the chemical environment, whether they are in a mixture or they are in a pure state. It is quick to process. We will see there are two ways to processing. One is the continuous wave and the pulse wave. Pulse waves are advantageous because it shows the spectra in an order of seconds. Quantification of mixtures and likely binding. If when we go back and see this 2D NMR, we will see how the two nuclei, any two nuclei are related to each other. Let us say we have a carbon and hydrogen nuclei, how are they related to each other. So, what they do is that they tell us what are the likely binding sites. So, which are the places where it is open for any binding, let us say hydrogen binding or other types of active sites. So, these are very useful. Quantification of mixtures, but this is not in a generally it is not used quantification of mixture, that I will tell you why. The disadvantage also you should see, it is dependent on magnetic field to derive most of the peaks first. So, higher the magnetic field, better will be results. So, but at the cost of higher energy. So, it is dependent on a field. It is not suitable for ppm level detection, unlike HPLC or EV spectroscopy, which you have already you must be knowing. So, at very low concentration, so you will not able to detect that particular molecule is there or not. So, for a ppm level detection, you need some other specialized instrument. Okay. So, it is not useful. So, dependent on specific nuclei. Now, you see in the starting of the lecture, I told you that we are only doing a spectra on those nuclei which are abundant in nature, like hydrogen, then you have this carbon 13. So, odd mass number we are including the fluorine, because oxygen 16 does not have any NMR spectra. So, fluorine 16, then you have phosphorus 31, all those are odd number. So, it is dependent on specific nuclei, and then the sensitivity of nucleus signal to noise ratio, this is again related to the magnetic field, and the relaxation of nuclei. This is an important concept which we will take up in detail in the next lecture. It means that when a particular energy is sent to a nuclei, what it have is it will excite the nuclei, but it will not come that quickly, it will not relax, the entire molecule will not relax too soon, it will take some time to relax. So, it will decay exponentially, that is what the problem sometimes arises, the relaxation of nuclei. So, we will conclude this lecture. In the next lecture, we will see what are chemical shifts. Thank you.